Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wash City Podcast. This is Nate Bishop with Larry TB Pup, and we just wanted to jump on really fast, and this is gonna be a quick one, but we wanted to talk about Joe Cronin's press conference, and then also talk a little bit about what we're calling Joe's ace in the hole, and so jumping right into the press conference, Larry, what was your first impressions? Because I have a few things written down, but I just kind of wanted to get your unfiltered. What was your impression of Joe Cronin's press conference?
I wish I could have heard the questions a little better so I understood where people were coming from. His answers were about what you would expect, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He said what he could say. There was one thing, and maybe I don't want to steal your thunder, so I'd like to hear what you think, but there was one answer that he gave that was very short, very succinct, and to me that was the highlight of the press conference, and it was probably the shortest answer he gave to any question. So I'm curious about what your takeaway was from that. I don't steal your thunder.
Um, I thought there was a few things I really thought stood out. There were two really short answers. One was that he hasn't talked to Dame, to Dame, directly, since that meeting with Aaron Goodwin. At least I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Which isn't super surprising, but to me, that signifies that the relationship is irreparable, or I don't know.
It felt like it had soured a bit because he did make reference to we talked all the time about where we were and the trades we wanted to make, and he talked about that in a past tense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I get the biggest thing for me, the biggest answer was maybe the shortest one, and it was towards the end. And he said, if it takes months, it takes months.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought set the tone. That was like his, not necessarily a drop the mic moment, but it was like, we're not there. We're not that close. And I think this will go into a little bit of your, maybe ace in the hole bit is
Yeah.
he's not in a rush and he's not going to make a move for less than what he feels like he can get, and I'm glad for that. I do worry if he gets in a room, just him and Pat Riley or whoever he might be dealing with, but well, especially Riles. But I'm glad he's sticking to his guns in terms of, and he mentioned this several times, in terms of what's best for the franchise. If it works out, and this is summarizing, if it works out what's best for the franchise is also where Dame goes, that would be the best outcome. That sounds like at least that's what he's saying. But he's sounds like he's more interested in what's best for the franchise than what's best for Dame, which is what he should be doing. That's his job.
Yeah. So yeah,
What's best for Dame is Aaron Goodwin's job.
yeah, and I agree with you. That was kind of the main takeaway from the press conference was that he's not going to rush. I don't know which, again, kind of to your point, it was really difficult to hear the questions. Some of them were a little bit easier to hear than others, and I don't know who asked what, but one of the reporters asked what Joe has learned from his last 18 months and other teams. And he said, I thought this was really interesting. He said, I think what I have learned more than anything is that patience is critical. Don't be reactive. Don't jump at things that seemingly solve a problem. I think that teams that have ended up in the most positive situation post-trade have been the ones who have been really diligent and taken their time and not been impulsive, or the teams that really kept their urgency under control. So what he's saying is he's looking at the Durant trade, the Ben Simmons trade, any of these other trades where the general manager was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to just trade you. I'm going to wait until I feel like this is a good move, and then I will send you where I am ready to send you to. So, it's easy to say that. It's harder to follow through.
Well, but he's coming forward with the right talking points. Howard Beck, sometime last week, was a guest on someone's show, and he talked about he had a list of over a half dozen names of players that didn't go to where they wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
Donovan Mitchell and Kawhi Leonard, and I mean he listed off all the players and the names and the teams where they wanted to go and where they ended up. And it was way more than players who got to go exactly where they wanted to go, at least at first. Kawhi ended up in LA, but that's not where he got traded to. So it's, and I think this leads perfectly into your point about why maybe if this takes a long time, the Blazers might be not okay with that. I think they would prefer it gets done, but maybe they'll be okay if it does take a little while longer.
It's funny though, because they keep I've heard people bring up those destinations, and it's not really, I don't know if those really support our position, because Kawhi left after 1 year, and yeah, they got a championship out of it, but they also had some lucky bounces, so it could have very easily ended in them being knocked out in the Eastern Conference Finals, so sure. That might have not worked out for Toronto. And then OKC traded for Paul George, and I think he was gone within 2 years. I think it was 2 years, because
I think he actually re-signed there and then left.
Yeah. Because Melo was there for, I think, either his first year or his second year, and then Melo was gone, and that was the year that Dame knocked them out. So neither one of those are great.
No, but they're well, and I wish I had the list that he put out. Well, Chris Paul. Mm-hmm. Chris Paul, when he got traded, it wasn't where he wanted to go the first time. I'm trying to remember the rest, but I can't. But he had a number of them. And who's to say that Dame's in Miami, if that's where he ends up, that he's there the rest of his time?
Yeah.
Riley is one that will move off of somebody if he thinks he made a mistake, or he's probably one of the more powerful, influential GMs in the league. And if there's something that he wants done, he has relationships with agents and agent groups that he can fall back on and get some things done. So, what if Dame went there and it didn't work out? They didn't win, or somebody got injured and they ended up out in the first round, or so. I mean, they were a play-in team this year. They almost lost.
Yeah,
they lost the first one, barely won the second one, and then started their run. And Giannis got hurt, and Boston almost came back, and then Tatum sprained his ankle. I mean, they got some breaks, which
luck, yeah.
Most teams that get to the finals or win the finals do get breaks. But it's not a slam dunk that they were just this team that was the overwhelming favorite that coming into the finals.
Yeah.
So what if it didn't work out? It's more likely to if Dame's there, but if it didn't in a year or two, I could see Riley moving off of that.
Yeah. Yeah. The other really interesting point that I haven't really heard anybody talk about, and I think it really jumped out to me, because Joe, they asked him if he was surprised about Damian's trade request, and he said he wasn't surprised, and he gave a long explanation about maybe being a little bit jolted, but not surprised. But what's interesting to me is that he said they weren't really pursuing anyone in free agency, that they were only really pursuing trades, and that they were basically holding open some spots for lopsided trades, like three for ones. Well, what's interesting to me is they cut Knox and they cut Trendon Watford to open up 2 spots the day before supposedly Damian asked for a trade. So I have a feeling that the trade request wasn't such a big surprise as he might have made it out to be, or as other people might have made it out to be, because it kind of seemed like he was preparing for it.
Well, was he preparing for that, or was he preparing to try and make a deal where more players would come in than players went out. Now, you wouldn't think that would be the case. If you're getting a veteran, you're probably sending out more than you're getting. Um, so I don't know. I mean, some of those rosters, some of those were just deals. I mean, in Watford's case, they did it so they didn't have to guarantee a salary of someone they probably wasn't going to play a lot anyhow,
Yeah.
and they can get someone else. Reddish, not surprised they moved off of that. Knox, I was a little bit surprised. It's a young lottery type player. He hasn't played up to that. But there's always this, players have potential for a long time, and some GM or coach thinks, hey, I could get something out of that guy, and it would have been for $3 million. And I mean, if you sign a vet minimum or even just a minimum contract guy, it's not going to take up much less than that, and maybe a little more if it's a 10-year vet minimum. I think that's 3.2 this year. So that one surprised me a little bit. I thought it was just a cheap contract that you could have that's still a guy that's only a few years away from being a lottery pick. Those seem to carry some value for quite some time.
I just thought, they had to make decisions on those days. I mean, it was either they kept those two players or they let them go. There was no middle ground. So it was like, I just wonder, if they had to decide to keep them, and they opened up a couple of spots on the roster. It just seemed kind of interesting. The timing was interesting.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that they didn't really go out and sign anyone else, and this kind of all keeps building towards the eventual topic of Joe's ace up his sleeve. But Joe mentioned, and I want to read this quote.
Well, he did talk about some things that he had that they weren't able to do, or they might come back to something. I forget his exact quote, but discussions that they had. And that's, I mean, how long have we heard this with him, with Olshey? Well, we tried and we didn't get it done. Now, in some cases, conversations have been had. I know I was made aware of some of the ones that Cronin had, some of the ones in the past that Olshey did. I mean, Olshey was really tight with stuff, really tight. I mean, anything I got was from either someone with another team or an agent or something like that I might happen to know for a while. It wasn't from Portland side. He kept that locked down really tight.
Yeah.
So I didn't get as much from him on a lot of some of the discussions he had till maybe later. Oh yeah, they talked about this back, and it's like, well, you could have said something. I didn't find out until later. Okay.
So this is what he said that I thought was really interesting, and this kind of is along the same lines of what I was thinking about Watford and Knox. What I have really done for the most part since the trade request is to press pause as far as transacting, because I wanted to see keep some flexibility with the back of our roster. We have some roster spots right now. Certain deals that we could be doing would be 3-for-1 kind of things, where we're going to need some roster spots. But with that, you see guys going off the board. So this is where he also kind of talks about free agency. That he said, we've seen some guys go off the board. We try to keep them as much warm as we can with the free agents that we're talking to, but they can only wait so long. So I'm curious what free agents he's talking to that he's trying to kind of keep in the back burner,
Well, it wasn't a great free agent year, and there's a few free agents left. It's no one that's contributing to a championship, but that's not where this team is. Christian Wood's still out there. I think Kelly Oubre, PJ Washington is still out there.
Yeah.
Although I think that he's restricted. There was the talk about John Wall had done a workout with Portland being one of the teams that watched. And then a guy that's been injured for a while, and I think he's come back and was pretty good. It's been a couple of years now, 2-3 years. But he might be actually back and able to play, is TJ Warren. Now, none of these are big names, big signings, big dollar amounts, but there might, who knows who he's talking about.
Yeah.
But there's a few guys left out there that would be, okay, I can see where that person could contribute in this manner. So just so we're not running out a bunch of, 22 and under squads besides Grant and Thibault, and that's assuming Nurk is here, I guess, gone. I don't know.
Yeah. Um, so I know we want to keep this short. We're at 15 minutes right now, so I kind of want to jump into our, kind of bigger topic. And we've kind of already danced around a little bit with Joe's comments about being more patient, being more diligent, taking time, that this could take months. Also, I thought something that might not have seemed connected when he initially said it, but I feel like is a component of it, is they asked him about essentially would he welcome Damian back? If Dame wanted to return to the team, if he changed his mind, would he be okay to that? And Cronin basically, left the door wide open. We love Dame. We'd love to have him back. I'd have to see if I can find the exact quote, but
He definitely left room for something we've talked about before. Does Dame come back at the end of this contract? His last year is a player option. If things weren't working out, not that he would decline that much money, but who knows what he might come back for. If he still has a home here, he's still got his business here, he's still, things have smoothed out and there's still a relationship here, and he comes back. I mean, I think it would be a great way for him to end his career. Um, whether or not he had won a title wherever, if it's in Miami. So Cronin did certainly leave that window open in a pretty gracious, hey, there's no hard feelings. We would welcome you back whenever you could come back, speaking to, I think, towards the end of his career.
See, but I wonder if he's providing himself with some cover if he has to essentially use the ace in the hole that we've been kind of teasing. Because he said, I haven't lost hope.
Let's get into
Let's
that.
get into that. Because but I think it's easier to say, Dame, we haven't found the best deal. We want you to stick around until something else opens up. So what I think, you and I were talking about this offline, and what I'm wondering is the Blazers have stayed below the luxury tax, even with the the re-signing of Grant and the re-signing of Thibault. So the question is, have they set themselves up to tell Dame, well, there's no skin off our nose. We can't find a deal for you. If you're not willing to expand your list, we're just going to keep you until we find something that works for us. Because there's really no financial I can't think of the right word here. There's no financial penalty to them. If they're not in the luxury tax and Dame decides he's going to sit out, as has been threatened through the media, then they can just say, all right, that's okay. We were kind of planning on tanking anyway. You can just, sit off to the side. We're not going to pay your contract, and we're not paying the luxury tax, so this is kind of just up to you.
Well, and they're under the tax, depending on what Grant's official first year numbers are. They're under the tax 12-13 million dollars. So even if they signed a free agent, they signed it for a max amount that they could still offer, they're still going to be under the luxury tax. Mm-hmm. So there is, and that speaks to when Cronin said, if it takes months, it takes months. Like, oh, well, if it does take months, are there any ramifications to this? And financially, there's not.
Yeah.
If he suits up and is available and or plays, like Durant went back and played. Now, it was a different situation. They had some talent. They were actually a solid team when Durant went back and played. And then when he left and, it went downhill. They finished as the 6th seed, but I think they were the 3 seed when Durant left, 2 or 3. So obviously that's not the same situation here. So, but as long as he suits up, is available to play, maybe fakes a little injury. I can't quite play today. I have a tight hamstring or whatever. But as long as he's available for the most part, he'll collect his paycheck. He'll be there. I think it's a distraction. It's not fair to the rest of the players. It's not good for him. It's going to be awkward for the team. Or would they just keep him home? Now, if they tell him to stay home, they pay him. If he decides to stay home, they don't pay him. But otherwise there is, like you said, there's no penalty, there's no ramification. This could go on for a while. And if And so the longer it goes on, let's say we went, he sat out a whole year. He Ben Simmonsed it. Okay. Now the offers next year would probably not be
It's
as
good.
good as they could have been this year in an open market because he's a year older. But you would expect that. But you would expect an offer of about maybe what you're getting now. Well, if that's what you're getting now, you didn't really lose anything. And at some point he would have to open that up to, okay, I'm opening that up to Brooklyn, to Boston, to
Philly or
Utah because he
whatever.
went to
Yeah.
school there. And he liked, Philly if they would do that. Well, but Tyrese Maxey is worth prime Jordan if you ask Daryl Morey. So
Yeah.
that will never happen.
Yeah. Well, and Dame just doesn't. Here's the thing. Uh, Dame just doesn't have the time. He's going to be 33 in like a week, and he can't burn a year. And the Heat,
Well, and
the Heat can't
neither can
either.
Miami.
Yeah, they're not in a great spot either if they don't bring him in. So
Butler's going on 34. You talked about the lucky bounce, or that some teams have gotten in the past that got him to a certain place, and they certainly benefited from not so much bounces but some injuries. They're not. They don't have a lot of time either. So at some point they're going to be under a bit of pressure. I mean, they re-signed Josh Richardson now, who's older, and they think maybe the worst defensive center in the league last year. They added him, but Strus is gone. Gabe Vincent's gone. Those were big parts of some of their runs this year. So they're on a little bit of borrowed time. I would think at some point there's some pressure for them on their end to get it done, because if not, what's going to happen? They'll still be a solid team, but it will be a waste of a year for them and for Dame.
yeah, yeah. So I don't they don't
And
have time.
Portland wouldn't lose anything.
Yeah.
They're like, well, we were going to play young guys anyhow.
Yep.
So yeah, to your point, what does it really matter other than it's awkward, maybe uncomfortable a little bit?
Yeah, and
Um,
they have to show that they're willing to walk away. Because we don't. The interesting thing is we haven't heard really any rumors about what Miami is offering. Nothing. We really have not heard like, okay, this is what's currently on the table. We've heard Chris Haynes say essentially that there have not been any serious discussions between Portland and Miami. To me, that sounds like Miami made not a great offer, which is funny because their offer kind of stinks no matter what. But it sounds like maybe they're making a less than stellar offer anyway. And Joe's just like, you know what? No, we're not gonna take that. So he's preaching patience. And
well, there's not much discussion to be had right now, because I think both sides know that the package isn't good enough,
yeah.
and
Well,
someone's gonna have to buy in to helping Miami out. But why would we talked a little bit about this on off air? Why would, let's say it's opened up and it's the Eastern Conference. You would prefer to trade Dame to an Eastern Conference team. So why would Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Boston, I mean, take those are probably the three most likely. Why would any of those teams help Miami out to be better than they are? As soon as Dame goes there, Miami's probably the favorite.
yep.
So why would, certainly Boston and Philly, not Brooklyn so much, why would they help Miami out? It's like, well, we're putting you in the Eastern Conference Finals by doing this. There's no real incentive for them to do that. Brooklyn maybe a little, because they're not a title contender. Now, if Dame went there with John, Thomas, excuse me, Cam Johnson, and Bridges, and maybe they make a trade and next year get a free agent, they could be pretty good. That's probably a year out.
Yeah.
But why would these teams knowingly help out Miami? Because it pushes them back.
Yep.
And also, if they don't help out Miami, and Miami gets to the end of this and does not have the assets, it's like there's not enough. Maybe Dame opens up his list of teams that he would go to, and maybe it does now include Brooklyn and Philly and Boston. And so I can see two reasons why they wouldn't do it. One, make a team better than them. Two, it eliminates Dame from coming there. So it's not surprising to me that teams aren't lining up to go, yeah, we'll take this young 22, 23-year-old guy that averages 25 and 4 or whatever Hero puts up. It doesn't surprise me. If he gets traded, it's almost like he gets traded to a Western Conference team who wouldn't care as much. I can't see an Eastern Conference team do it. Now, they might, but it makes sense why they wouldn't. And so Dame has limited options. Like I'm only going to Miami. Well, then that has limited their options in the Eastern Conference. Those teams don't want to help him out.
Yeah, and I think another thing we talked about off air was that they might be hoping that if they don't play ball, he'll expand his list. So not only do they not want to help Miami get better, but it's kind of the same reason why we thought, Brooklyn would have been not in a huge rush to help us get Bridges, is because they're thinking if we hold out, maybe they get Dame.
Right.
So I think it's very possible.
They have time to hold out. I mean, Brooklyn's there's no rush for them. They've got all the time in the world. So
yeah. So Boston and Brooklyn, Philly, they might be thinking, well, if we don't take on Hero, who's, not really the best upgrade for them, then maybe Dame will expand his list and they might have a shot at getting him, and that would put them over the top. So yeah, I think there's definitely, it seems like there's a game of chess going on right now. And Dame and his agent are working really hard to try to leverage us into a corner.
They're trying to control the narrative. Haynes is certainly helping out Dame, doing all that he can, carrying as much water as possible. Fine. I mean, that's how some of these things go, but it has gotten a little scorched earth. You wish it hadn't gone that way. Sometimes it does. I don't see that Portland's in a rush. And so that takes some of the leverage off of where, Dame's side was the one that limited this. So,
yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you're stuck with, well, you picked a team, and we talked about this, that has, by doing that, it artificially depresses what you're going to get back, and Portland can just wait it out. There's no penalty to them, like you said, on the tax side, on any other side. There's nothing. It sucks that it's not done and over with, but I would rather Joe do that than accept 50 cents on the dollar. We're not going to get 100% on 100 cents on the dollar. We're not going to get $1 for $1, because there's no player we're going to get that's as good as Dame.
And Joe said that. They asked him point blank, "Is there a player out there of Dame's caliber?" And he's like, "No. There's nobody out on the market right now other than Dame." I think I was listening to some local radio, sports radio, and they were like, "Let's just get this over with. Let's just be done. Let's turn the page." And I totally get it. I understand why people feel that way. And I think there's definitely a lot of merit to wanting to just be like, let's just be done with this. Let's give the team to Scoot. Let's start the next chapter. I totally get it, but making sure that we do this right, and get as much value out of Dame as possible is going to help us launch the rebuild. It is absolutely critical that we get good value out of Lillard, and then eventually, if we trade Grant or if we trade Thibault, we need to get good value for them. So it's so important. And Joe's still auditioning for his job. I mean, he might be the permanent GM, but it's another thing you and I have talked about. If the team is sold, or if Bert decides Joe's no longer the right guy, Joe needs to have some stuff on his resume that shows he can do it, that he can be a general manager. And it really does not seem like the rest of the league respects him right now.
So far, the resume is not great. The CJ trade was not bad by the time it was all done. I don't know why they threw in Nance, but they did. But the Powell Covington one was terrible, and why they did it so early, when they could have waited, and now there's a little more. They have a little more leverage. I get that you would have been playing chicken a little bit because they wanted those contracts off the books. I get that. But it's that one seemed rushed. That one seems okay. We'll take whatever to get under the tax.
It was a week before the deadline. I mean, it was
yeah, it was a week before the
full week.
deadline, and that came from above. That directive wasn't Joe Cronin. I think I'll just give these guys away. That
For
was
nothing. Yeah.
Joe. You got to get under the tax. We're not paying the tax with this team. Make it happen, and he did. He gave them away. So,
Yeah.
the resume is not really strong if he was going to get another front office job, which he came into this as a capologist. He would get another job. It wouldn't be a GM job. It would at best be assistant GM somewhere.
Yeah.
Which is probably not what he wants. He's been an assistant for how long was he under Olshey? Years.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think I really go back to that scene from Moneyball where Art House says, "I'm playing my roster in a way that I can explain in interviews in the next year." So I think Joe has to really play this right if he wants to be able to continue to be a general manager in the NBA. If he totally flops on this, that's going to be it. I just don't think anybody's going to look at his body of work and say, "Yep, this is the guy. Let's make him the general manager." And so I think there's definitely an incentive for him to wait and slow play this. I think there's an incentive for Jody to wait and slow play this. And while I think a lot of the fans, just want to get this over with, I think that long term there's an incentive for us to wait and be patient and let them work. I know we're at time, so we need to wrap this up. But yeah, I think the card is there. The ace is up his sleeve. I think it's just a matter of, is Joe willing to play it?
Well, it seems like so far that he is. He didn't, whether they thought the pressure would just immediately, hey, I want to go, and we're limiting it here, and there's a lot of media pressure, and we got, Haynes dropping basically media pressure from Dame's side in terms of talking points, and that's only been a week and a half. It hasn't been. It's not like it's been. It feels like it's been forever, but it really hasn't been that long.
Yeah. No, it hasn't. This whole thing's only been going on for a week. Yeah, right? Like a little over a week.
It's not that far.
Yeah.
So real quickly as we wrap up, any Scoots out, that took a lot of the glitz and glamour off the matchup with Wembanyama. What one player did you like out of and let's players that might be with Portland. So let's maybe remove Belbiv DeVoe and that thing that he did yesterday. Anything that you saw from anybody that you liked yesterday?
I thought Rupert looked a lot better. His offensive game is still rough.
Terrible.
Like, dude needs to seriously get in the weight room and work on his shot. But his defensive instincts are nice, and he pushes the ball. So I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he needs to go down to the G League. I think he needs to get some reps. But I really do like Ryan Rupert. So I would keep an eye on him for sure.
The way he moves and just the way he runs, kind of his body, just symmetrics, I guess, on the court, reminds me a little bit of Travis Outlaw. A little bit pigeon-toed, just the steps that he takes, the moves that he makes, the long arms. We hope that he's better than that, but he reminds me of that just in the way he moves when Travis first came in, and very raw, athletic, long, deer in the headlights kind of guy. I liked Walker, looked like the veteran out there, just really filled up the stat line, gave them some foundation, a calming influence, kept making the right plays all over the place. I think he had 13 rebounds.
He just doesn't make stupid mistakes, and I love that, because so many guys in summer league are just making boneheaded moves. And he just seems, I think he's ready to step into the rotation next year. Maybe not like, a ton of time, but I could see him getting regular minutes.
Yeah, I wish he was just, an inch or two taller, but I can see him getting, you're not worried about him being on the floor of making a crucial mistake, making a boneheaded play. You feel like he can be out there and he'll be fine. He's probably not going to make you a ton of great plays, certainly on his own, but he's going to do a lot of little things. So I liked that. I like that they won, even though you wouldn't even know that they played. It was just Victor, Spurs, Victor for an hour and 45 minutes. My goodness.
Yeah.
I was so glad that Portland won, because it made me, I was like, oh, this is gonna way it's going to be all season long. Just
Yep.
Victor, no matter what the outcome of the game or the team, they're just going to be salivating all over him. So I was really glad Portland won, and they really should be 2-0. I mean, they're putting up what they had 99 the first game, 85 the second game. They're putting up good offensive numbers.
Yeah, and I would just say, kind of as my last point to make about Summer League so far, I would just preach patience with Shaedon Sharpe. He's 20 years old, and he's going to have these ups and downs while he puts together how to be, a pro. Because Scoot's been a pro baller for 2 years, and you can just tell he's ready. He's ready for the spotlight. He's ready to lead a team. Shaedon did not play at all for a year and really didn't get a chance to kind of like flex until the end of last season. So he's going to have ups and downs. He's going to be a 20-year-old. He's going to make mistakes. And he's going to have rough shooting nights. And so, we want him to be the guy, but it's going to take a little while.
Well, and when you're young, you need confidence to get started. So if he can be aggressive, or they could run a backdoor lob, something to get him going, then it seems like he shoots better. If he has to shoot his way into a hot streak, that's tough on a young player. Get something going to the basket, get something early and easy for him, or a transition opportunity, and I bet that shot comes along. He hasn't learned to be consistent when he's not hot yet.
Yeah.
He'll go get hot, and then okay, man, there's incredible plays that happen, but he hasn't learned to do that just as a normal operation of his game. And I think it'll come. My only thing with him is it looks like his effort isn't quite as high as I would like it to be until maybe later in the game.
Yeah, he does. I can't tell if he's just kind of coasting and he doesn't really care about Summer League, or it's hard to tell. Some people have speculated that he's having a little bit too much fun because it's Las Vegas, but we don't have any. I mean, that's not based on anything. There's no facts there. So we're past time. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. Thank you very much again, Larry, for coming on. We will continue doing these.
Next
Tuesday.
game is tomorrow.
Tomorrow. No word yet if Scoot's going to play. I'm hoping he will. I would love to see him a little bit more, especially see him with Shaedon. So, all right. Well, thanks very much, Larry. This is the Wash City Podcast, and we will talk to you all again soon. Thank you for tuning in.